Welcome to Sector Report. I'm David Beatson. This week, can Kiwi farming know-how turn into a billion-dollar export? What's changing the game for New Zealand wool in North America? And meet the man who really put his mark on New Zealand beef and lamb.
We went to industry, went to the meat board with this idea that if we could raise money, could we form a partnership between farmers and processors?
New Zealand's Beef and Lamb Marketing Bureau was in the doldrums when Rod Slater joined it 18 years ago. He was supposed to close it down. Instead, he turned it round with a string of successful marketing coups like the Iron Maidens campaign featuring Kiwi sporting greats Sarah Ulmer and the Evers Swindell twins. This year, the retail meat industry presented the chief executive of Beef and Lamb with its prestigious Christie Award for Lifetime Achievement. Our rural correspondent Neil Parker with the Rod Slater success story.
The world's best beef and lamb isn't only produced here in New Zealand, it's enjoyed here too. Look for the quality mark at your local butcher or supermarket to make sure you're buying the best beef and lamb in the world. That's why we love it.
Yes, we love it. And we love them, almost as much as the man behind those popular ad campaigns loves meat.
I do love meat. I love working with it, I love marketing it, and I certainly love eating it.
Meet Rod Slater, the CEO of New Zealand Beef and Lamb. And it would be a rare thing if he didn't love meat. After all, he was born into the trade.
It really started from cradle, I guess. I was born or raised in a little area in New North Road in Mount Albert, Auckland. My father owned the corner butcher shop, which was just him and an apprentice. In fact, I was delivering meat on a bicycle with a huge basket in front of it when I was 10 years old. So how I couldn't do anything else but be a butcher.
Rod Slater joined New Zealand Beef and Lamb in 1994. It was then the New Zealand Beef and Lamb Marketing Bureau. The organisation was in debt, and Rod's job was to close it down. But the phones were still ringing with people wanting information about meat.
Good morning, Fiona. Unusual for you to be here at 6 in the morning. I began to think, well, we might think the operation is finished, but the outside public don't believe that. So we decided we'd try and save it.
Rod was all on his own. The staff had gone.
We went to industry, went to the meat board with this idea that if we could raise money, could we form a partnership between farmers and processors? And that took about 6 months, but we pulled it off.
140 grams of grilled lean rump steak will give you half your daily iron needs. So will a 1.4 kilo roast chicken.
Although there was little funding, Rod had what he describes as a couple of lucky breaks. One was getting his hands on some cheap Aussie TV commercials, which turned out to be very popular with the Kiwi public and the stakeholders. But it wasn't easy.
Mamma mia!
It's had a hard time, and it's still having a hard time, on a number of fronts.
2 of your best sources of essential daily iron.
Those fronts being the high price of meat on the global market, and what Rod describes as a lot of misinformation about meat and its excellent properties. There's still a job to do.
Absolutely still a job to do, and in fact, if anything, that job and the responsibility to defend the product out there is increased. Quite frankly, if we didn't have this organisation, no one would have been challenging a lot of the stuff that's been said and being a counter voice for our product.
And stand up he did. Those marketing campaigns just kept on coming. Remember this?
To perform at your best, you need iron, omega-3s, protein, zinc and vitamin B12. Eating at least 3 to 4 red meat meals a week will help sustain your vitality and well-being.
And this?
How can you tell which is the most tender beef and lamb? By the quality mark, of course.
And then
We didn't get the way we are by doing things that fate.
the Athens Olympics. Who could forget the triumphs of Sarah Ulmer and the Evers Swindell twins? For Rod, it was a no-brainer.
In the space of 48 hours, one weekend back in 2004, New Zealand won 2 gold medals. Out of that came the Iron Maidens, with the campaigns that we did were just an outstanding success.
Favourite athlete? Sarah Ulmer. Who? Women need twice as much iron as men, so eat lean beef and lamb 3 to 4 times a week. Feel twice as good.
We love to boogie. We love to boogie.
I met Rod many years ago on a plane trip to Wellington. We were going down to wage negotiations.
Peter Leach and I got together in the early 80s really as a result of industrial strife that was going on in New Zealand.
The reality was we didn't like each other actually, but we just ended up sitting next to each other and a conversation started and we've become lifetime friends, to be fair.
And business partners too. The first Mad Butcher outlet was opened in Takapuna in 1981. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Roads were closed. It was just unbelievable that one small little butcher shop could create this much publicity. But a wonderful journey and we had a lot of fun. I'm not sure we made much money, but it didn't matter.
To be honest, we never had an argument. In all the years we're in business, we never had a disagreement.
4, 3, 2, 1, commence.
Originally based on the Young Farmer of the Year, the Young Butcher of the Year contest is eagerly anticipated by the meat industry.
It has become awfully popular. It started from small beginnings. I remember the very first one was held in a marquee in a country town. I can't remember where it was exactly, but it was very, very humble. And it went on like that for a number of years till we made the decision that we needed to ramp it up and take it to a new level.
The competition is now in its 20th year, and needless to say, Rod has been involved since day one.
1 minute. It used to be at the showgrounds, the Auckland Showgrounds, held in conjunction with the food fair, and they asked me to commentate there some time ago, and I can't seem to get rid of the job.
Rod Slater believes the skills on display at the competition indicate the butchery trade is in very good shape.
What has happened is that the individual butchers have identified the need to be a bit different, to offer something different by way of service, by way of knowledge, and so there's a place in New Zealand now for both types of retailing, and I think that's a very healthy thing, and as a result we are in good shape.
A view shared by Chief Judge Keith Oddie from the Aussie Butcher Group.
They are definitely the cream of the cream, this year more so than ever. I've been judging this since day one, it's about 15 years, and this year this would be the best crop of apprentices and young butchers I've seen. This actually comes as no surprise to me. It's Peter Tua Tawa.
This new class of butcher that we are seeing today are very comprehensive in terms of their knowledge base, and the evidence of that was at that final.
Thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Little did he know it, but for Rod, the best was yet to come. The prestigious Christie Award, created on the deathbed of legendary Christchurch chef and butchery tutor Jeff Christie, is for lifetime achievement in the meat industry. Sir Peter Leach was the inaugural recipient.
To be the inaugural winner of it was very special to me. There was a tear in my eye.
The next was Master Butcher Todd Heller.
It was very rewarding to think that your peers in the industry have thought that you deserve this award.
And this year it was Rod Slater who received the award.
Absolutely blown away. I had no idea whatsoever. It was actually a very emotional evening, to be frank.
There wasn't even an apprenticeship when I started, and so, you know, and Rod's played a major part in developing that, making it a bit more prestige, put a bit more beef into the bite, you know. So, you know, very, very good stuff.
So this is how you do it. We love the boogie.
And the effort continues as Rod shows the moves to two of New Zealand's latest Iron Maidens.
Turns out Sarah Walker and Lisa Carrington can bust a move or two as well.
I guess probably the biggest challenge for the meat industry is to keep red meat on the plates of New Zealanders and the world as far as that goes, and that it remains to be part of a balanced diet. I think that is the biggest challenge. We're holding on that challenge, but we must never let that slip.
And I've been some clever bastards. Lucky cleaners, lucky cleaners. And I've been some clever bastards. Lucky cleaners, lucky cleaners. And I've been some clever bastards.
Rural correspondent Neil Parker with Rod Slater. And next, where else in the world can we turn Kiwi farming know-how into a billion-dollar export business? The answer after the break. Stay with Sector Report. So where in the world can we turn New Zealand farm know-how into a billion-dollar export business? Well, the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise Organisation hired the analysts at PricewaterhouseCoopers to find out. And the answer is China and South America, two regions with a vital interest in developing pastoral farming, two areas where Kiwi skills in dairy and meat production could make a real contribution. But what's in it for New Zealand? To answer that question, we're talking to New Zealand Trade and Enterprise Agribusiness Program Leader, Halen Smith. Halen, welcome.
Thank you.
Can I ask you the hard question first?
Absolutely.
All right. What's the benefit in exporting our farm know-how? Doesn't that undermine our own primary products export drive?
Well, I think there's two angles to that. One is that there's a general understanding that we need to look at opportunities to increase the value from the exports that we have coming out of New Zealand at present. But on the other hand, we know also that there's an increase for protein production globally, and we know that New Zealand's very well positioned to help assist other countries and other multinationals develop their production systems, particularly in areas that we have a comparative advantage, such as sheep meat production and dairy.
It's the real objective, however, to break down some trade barriers, because we can't even get our product into some markets, or if we do, it's under restrictive or difficult market entry conditions. Is this part and parcel of the strategy?
No, the angle we took was purely economic development. I mean, NZTE is New Zealand's economic development agency, and we were looking for big wins for the New Zealand economy, if you like, in areas or business models that we could work with companies to achieve greater economic returns to New Zealand.
Why did you decide to focus on the opportunities in China and the South American states? When you consider it, we already have some major New Zealand companies operating in both zones.
I think that's a relative term in terms of scale. I think what we're seeing is that we've got some successful operations that are operating in areas like Chile and Brazil at the moment. We've obviously got a number of companies also in China. But the problem with New Zealand, not the problem, but the thing we deal with often is scale. And there's still significant opportunities to be captured in those markets. And we very well could have looked at a global analysis and say, what other parts of the world could we go into, be that Africa or North America or Eastern Europe. But we also need to recognise that the government's not going to go and execute on these opportunities. It needs to be New Zealand companies, and it needs to be New Zealand companies that have expertise in those markets. And some of these companies that we're talking about operating in those countries have been there for a number of years, if not decades.
So it's scaling up.
Absolutely.
Looking at how to scale up. What's the nature of the major opportunities that you've identified in this study?
Well, the way we did the report is that we did a background analysis on each of the countries in South America and China. We then had a fairly significant engagement, or PwC did, with New Zealand industry players. We started off with 21 key hypotheses, and we whittled that down to the final report, which ended up providing 5 recommendations. Those recommendations ranged in scope from the key one, which is really the development of a New Zealand Global Dairy Fund, which is looking at setting up farming operations offshore, to other areas of the supply chain, such as processing and marketing, both in South America and China. And the final recommendation looks at food safety opportunities in China, or taking the New Zealand food safety system at a corporate level into Chinese corporations. Which
is a problem we've identified by tripping over virtually, like in the infant formula area. Yeah. Okay, I mean, have you scaled the capital requirement, and have you scaled the risk that would be involved? These are major ventures you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said earlier, that they are major ventures, they are major opportunities, they are significant opportunities. And we have at a high level indicated the sort of capital requirements that will be required. So, for example, the operation I talked about in South America that would look at on-farm and processing joint venture with a South American counterpart. I mean, we estimate that would require about $15 to $20 million for on-farm productivity improvements, and then probably for each partner between $6 and $10 million for processing. For the China sheep farming recommendation, we estimate between $6 and $10 million there. These are just indicative numbers in terms of what the New Zealand companies will need to look to spend.
What about the Global Dairy Fund, the big one?
The big one. So what we're looking at there is, New Zealand is really in an enviable space. We're seen as world leaders in dairy. People are coming to New Zealand asking for assistance in dairy, be that multinationals or be that individual states within countries or governments looking for our assistance. The problem that we have in New Zealand is well, there's a number of issues, but a key one is capital. and putting capital into some of these offshore farming ventures. And the way that the PwC recommendation was developed is saying that, you know, we're not going to be able to raise all the capital from New Zealand. So what mechanisms can we put in place that means we can raise capital offshore through a New Zealand fund, and that the returns to are still coming to New Zealand as opposed to going to other countries. And so the idea was that they domicile the fund here, they use New Zealand farm managers, and they could potentially be the farmers that are operating in those markets already. Then we can get a greater return to New Zealand, as opposed to just, you know, potentially some people see it as an export of our IP.
How receptive are the governments in China and the South American states that you're targeting? I mean, they're asking, or rather, you're asking for somebody to come in and say, now we know you're worried about your food security, we're here to help you, but we happen to come from somewhere else, and perhaps we've got a multinational global financial backing as well. It'd be like somebody coming to buy the Crayford farm, wouldn't it?
It depends how you look at it. I mean, if you look at the agricultural investments that are occurring in say, some of the South American countries at the moment, they're row crops, and you look at the economic benefits in terms of rural economic development for those countries, and taking a New Zealand farming operation where you've got higher rural employment in terms of the farming system, there's obviously great benefits that those provincial and local governments see. And so I really don't think that the issues are that great, and there are significant benefits that the countries and those regions can see in using a New Zealand system. I'd also say that there's fairly significant interest in how New Zealand can cooperate or work with some of those regions and governments as well, be that through, you know, training of local farmers, through using New Zealand systems, through genetic seeds. So I think where we're getting to with the report is understanding how can we get away from just putting things in a 40-foot container, and potentially what are the next business models that are going to take New Zealand forward.
Well, you've already mounted seminars in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch on the report. Who have you been pitching these opportunities to, and what's the response been?
And again, it's not so much pitching, it's saying, look, we think these are potentially some models that the companies could look at into the future. The people we've been pitching to are obviously primarily those that will take part in any venture should they go forward, or should they be seen by industry as having significant commercial merit. So the types of people we're talking about are the meat companies, the people that are operating overseas at the moment in terms of these transnational farmers, the investment community, and obviously the input suppliers as well.
Halen, thanks for that outline. We'll track it.
Great, thanks very much.
Halen Smith, Agribusiness Program Leader at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. And coming up, who's cracked the North American carpet market, and what does it mean for New Zealand wool growers? That's next on Sector Report. Elders New Zealand says it has a North American game changer on its hands with its Just Shorn brand of New Zealand wool carpets. An initial trial run in 80 luxury stores in the United States convinced one of the world's largest carpet retail chains, CCA Global Partners, that they're right. Now the Just Shorn range of carpets and rugs is being rolled out across the United States and Canada in a move elders say could lift the value of wool at their growers' farm gates here in New Zealand. Up till now, the American market's been a tough nut to crack. So what's made the difference this time? Here's the man with the answer, Managing Director of Elders New Zealand, Stu Chapman. Well, Stu, thanks for joining us. Tell me, just how much of a game changer is this marketing deal you've just struck?
Well, David, it's about changing the perception of wool, re-educating consumers about the attributes of wool. So it is a big ask. But also,
why do you say that?
Well, there's a generation or two of people out there, particularly in America, that don't understand wool, because wool had a dominant marketplace in the 60s, and since then it's all been downhill to basically a 2% share of the flooring market today.
So what pushed you aside?
Synthetics and nylons. Yeah, they did a far better job. There was no promotion around wool over the last 30 or 40 years. And synthetics have just taken the market by storm. Obviously in America, the laminates and that are very strong as well. But in terms of the soft flooring, wool only accounts for 2%.
Well, it's a game changer in terms of consumer perception, but is it going to be a game changer in terms of business?
Well, that's still to be tested, of course, but and our early response from the IDG launch through the high-end International Design Guild, which is part of CCA, which we launched last year. The sales through there have been reasonably strong, not as perhaps strong as we would have liked, but CCA very happy with what they achieved.
Not a great time in the American economy to be launching, a new luxury product, though.
Yeah, no, it wasn't good timing, but when is a good time, and I guess we're hoping that it's all uphill from here.
Okay, bearing in mind that it is a pretty tough climate over there, how did you actually convince a major retailer to take a punt, essentially, on a product which didn't have a market presence in the States?
Well, CCA, a pretty innovative chain of stores. They are a cooperative, so they're all individual owner operators. They like the concept of dealing with Elders Primary Wool, which 50% of Elders Primary Wool is owned by Primary Wool, a cooperative farmers here in New Zealand, so there was some instant recognition around that. But they also saw the opportunity to grow their market share, given that wool's such a small percentage of the market. And their research had shown also that there was some demand for more natural, sustainable, environmentally friendly product, and wool fits that category great.
And did you test out the Just Shorn product? And where did it come from? Just Shorn. I mean, it says it all. pretty much fresh, natural, New Zealand in a way.
It is a great brand, but we worked with a Boston marketing company. We knew that.
You're not going to tell me Americans trained.
Well, unfortunately, that was the market that we were after, and we had to make sure that we understood all the nuances of consumers in America. So we worked with this Boston marketing company who came up with several options for us, and that was the option that was chosen by Kiwis. And it does resonate well, and it certainly holds well and shows well in the stores.
So tell me, what's it going to mean for the growers back home here?
Well, ultimately, it's got to mean better returns. This program's been 4 years in the making, and we've always said that we want to pay premiums for wool that we buy from our growers. And we're buying wool at the moment, and they get a market price on the day, and then they get a premium from the royalty of the sales at a later date. Mm-hmm. So ultimately it's about the growers and making sure that sheep farming or growing wool is a sustainable proposition.
Have you set yourself some targets for growing value?
We have.
What?
We've got some very strong targets, both agreed between ourselves and CCA around value and sales. Mm-hmm. And they are ambitious, but you've got to be ambitious, because if we aren't, we will never crack it. At the moment, we're manufacturing product for samples and small volumes of inventory, but that inventory supply will continue to grow between now and February.
You've got your processing manufacturing capacity lined up where?
Yes, so Godfrey Hirst is our manufacturer to this program. They are going to use all, obviously, Elders Primary Wool, supplied wool. They're going to scour it here in New Zealand, spin it, and manufacture the carpet here in New Zealand. So it's a wonderful New Zealand ink story, given that a lot of manufacturing jobs are under pressure at the moment in New Zealand. It's a wonderful New Zealand story.
Well, you're going into a huge market. So what kind of marketing strategy are you adopting, and are you planning anything special for the launch?
Yes, there is some special launch material available and functions, etc. Obviously, they are under wraps, but we will be using traditional digital marketing strategies. Obviously, educating consumers in the store is a big part of this program. It's not a scattergun approach. It's more about targeted marketing and ensuring that we get the opportunity for our store staff to upsell the product in store. And that's where CCA are very, very good. They have this online university where they're training their staff all the time in the way to upsell and showing them the benefits of quality wool.
Now, is it true the real incentive for them is that maybe they'll get to New Zealand and see the product on the ground?
We have had a couple of incentivised trips to New Zealand, which have worked favourably for us, and we'll continue to offer that as part of the program, because once the Americans, the store owners, get out here, seeing is believing, and just to get them on farm and talking to farmers and their wives and families, and seeing the sheep being shorn and seeing the way dogs muster the sheep, it's just mind-blowing for Americans. So it's very emotive, but hopefully very successful.
Well, we won't wish you luck, because you don't need luck, just good judgment.
We do indeed.
Stu Chapman, Managing Director of Elders New Zealand. And that's all from Sector Report for now. Don't forget, you can check out our programs anytime online at country99tv.co.nz. Thanks for your company. I'm David Beatson. See you next time.